Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and a somewhat sad discussion on the state of Elden Ring's upcoming DLC, the Shadow of the Erdtree. Yes, as you are more than likely aware, we did not get any news or information, teaser, release date, not even a new PNG to stare at for another 365 days. Pretty disheartening, to be honest. We continue to approach the second year since Elden Ring's original release in 2022, back in February, with absolutely nothing new to talk about or be excited for. That is not to say the DLC isn't still coming and that we don't have high expectations for it. I still do. Honestly, even higher at this point. We were just fully expecting them to announce the release date and provide us with an actual trailer at last at this Game Awards. We imagined it would be probably a cinematic trailer or a gameplay trailer, but something. We're expecting something, and we didn't get anything. Here's why we thought we were going to get something. Back in November, the latest Kadokawa report was released. Kadokawa is the parent company for From Software and have heavy stakes and likely say in the success and relevance of From Software's releases. But they also do things like book publication, physical and ebooks, education services and tech, animations even, all alongside gaming. In any case, Kadokawa released reports throughout the year to let people know, their investors, see where things are standing. It informs their current or potential new investors of what things are like now and what they should expect in the next quarter and beyond. They explain why the numbers are how they are, to be informative, sure, but also basically convince current investors that they should continue to invest or maybe invest more and so on. After the release and insane success of Elden Ring, they credited a massive amount of their successes that year to Elden Ring, and this showed that after its success, the other titles of From Software also went up in sales, and in their recent report talked about how Armored Core was, quote, a major success. Apparently, over 700,000 units were sold in Japan alone, and in fact, they expect those sales to only grow. This suggests potential continued support for Armored Core though. Maybe we'll get more content updates or DLC. Who knows? But yeah, a massive amount of the success for the gaming sector was credited to Elden Ring and how big it was, and how it brought a lot of new eyes to the releases by FromSoft beyond Elden Ring itself. Throughout these various reports over the nearly 2 years since Elden Ring launched, they've repeatedly stated that they're continuing support for Elden Ring. They're making sure that the audience remains active, and that was followed up by a lot of action, many patches for the game, more than we've seen for any other FromSoft game so far. Still, they continue to express their efforts to support the game in the future. In the most recent report in November, their outlook for the second half of their gaming segment was this: global sales for Armored Core 6 are expected to grow, and measures for maximizing the long-term life of Elden Ring will be taken. This means that within the second half of the financial year, they promise to do something before the end of March 31st, something that extends the life of Elden Ring. So, fairly we believe this was referencing the upcoming DLC for Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, and it heavily suggested it would release before March 31st. I mean, what would revive the player base for Elden Ring the most? Obviously, it's the planned and promised new content. If it was true, then what would be the biggest event for From Software to, in a relevantly fair timeline, actually officially announce its release date and the details finally? Well, obviously that'd be the Game Awards of 2023. With the host and creator of the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley, even posting about his meetings with From Software in Japan in the lead up to the event. Jeff has a history of meeting with teams and companies he plans to work at his events because, well, that makes complete sense. Jeff met with multiple teams, some of which appeared at the Game Awards this year as expected after that meeting. And yeah, he met with From Software. At this point, the Game Awards has fully replaced the now dead in the water E3 for universal announcements. After all, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, the big three who formed the main events for E3 generally, they all pulled out of E3 years ago. So eventually E3 began to crumble and we were ending up with basically no suitable platform for announcements. Thankfully, Jeff Keighley saw this as an opportunity to pick up that missing spot in the industry and has done overall a fantastic job of it over the years. I believe they're coming up to 10 years soon of doing the Game Awards, which is pretty cool. It's just, yeah, there were some serious issues with this year's event, meaning forcing the devs and winners of the awards to make their speeches in 30 seconds or less, so much so that they had to shout over the music in some cases. Particularly offensive when you consider, say, the Zelda one, where you've got someone that's speaking a different language with a translator, waiting for those words to be said so that they could translate them, taking up most of the time of that disgusting 30 seconds. So a lot of criticism has been directed at the event for that, and it was also filled with advertisements that took up a lot of time and a lot of dead time wasted on celebrities who were clearly paid to be there and just were talking about random stuff for a while. Meanwhile, the devs who worked through extremely difficult times after COVID, many of which were expressing how they lost really important people in the industry, and also there's been a lot of layoffs in the history of this year and everything that's going on with AI. A lot of that should have been acknowledged and there was just no room for it, or it just wasn't. To cut people off like this who finally have a chance to just say something for like a minute in front of a lot of people, it's pretty gross. And yet despite that, this year has been somewhat of a golden year for gaming. Some incredible releases. These people weren't even given the time to properly credit the people who mattered, who weren't able to be at the event, or say formulate their words within 30 seconds. The iconic idea to put these poor people under sort of a crunch timeline to get their speeches out after the horrors of crunch and dev time we've talked about, man, it's so tone deaf. So hopefully improvements will be made in the future. But yeah, the Game Awards. The best time and place for a big announcement, i.e. how Capcom this year announced the very anticipated Monster Hunter 6, for example. Jeff meets with From Software before the event, talks about it on social media, bringing up the hype. Kadakawa then releases this report stating that measures for Elden Ring and its long-term life are going to be maximized in the second half of the financial year, ending March 31st, 2024, and reports that the DLC has been making good progress in its development come over the recent months. In the lead up to the event, I was 100% sure we'd get something, and we didn't. And you know, I wasn't 100% sure in about a week before the event. What do I mean by that? Well, just before the Game Awards, there was this interview with some very disheartening information within. It didn't kill my hope entirely, but it probably should have. Yasuhiro Kitao, a lead producer for Elden Ring and From Software in general, well, he was involved in an interview at the recent PlayStation Awards. Within that interview, Kitao stated that Elden Ring's DLC was still, quote, a little ways off. Specifically though, he was asked this question: many are looking forward to the DLC, how is development? And he answered like this: I will talk about the DLC another time. It's still a little ways off, but progress is going well. Like the Dark Souls series and Bloodborne, this game features new battles and new characters. Please look forward to the new things. So while he can't say anything directly, he expects us to enjoy it to no one's surprise, and there's going to be a lot of new stuff. But again, it's a little ways off to the point he's not allowed to talk about it right now. This is just a Google translation, so you never know, maybe there's potential for things to not come across properly, but it still sounded like it's taking longer than planned. And like I said, it didn't fully kill my hope for the pre-March 31st release and the Game Awards announcement, but obviously now it has. Within that interview, Kitao also explained that their stance on development hasn't changed despite the success of Elden Ring. They always approach work diligently to create something interesting and valuable. So even though Elden Ring was such a massive success and, you know, they'll have received a bigger budget for future, I'm sure, they're not going to budge even an inch on release schedules, clearly, and only release things when they're fully cooked by their own standards. And you got to respect that. It's a shame it's taking so long, but it's probably better to be this way. Whatever we get in the end, it's going to be the fully realized version of what they want to make. And at this point, I'm expecting the expansion, as they call it, to be something bigger than we've ever seen from a From Software DLC. FromSoft have released some of my favorite DLCs in any game ever, and I do expect this to be the best one they've ever released. So pretty high standards and stakes I'm saying there, but at this point, it's the longest development time we've seen for one of their DLCs, so yes, the stakes are higher. When will that release? Well, we don't know at this point. My best guess would be summer 2024 if they originally planned to come out, say, early 2024 and it just got pushed back. But I'm pretty in the dark on this, obviously, and I'm just making my best guess rather than based on anything reasonable. It's a real shame, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of people, after all this waiting, are sick of waiting. But like I said, it is best that it releases when it's ready and not before. Ultimately, it's going to be fantastic when it hits, and I expect it to be the biggest DLC they've ever released. Until then, all we have to do is be patient. Anyway, hopefully there was something at the Game Awards announced for you that you are excited for. Personally, Monster Hunter 6 is a big one for us in the channel. The Monster Hunter series is our main thing, and we do look forward to playing and covering it again when it finally releases. Until next time though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.